All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Eugene Edwards. I'm sure most of you know me. I think, right? I'm an Edwards from Palenville. And I graduated high school in '95. I grew up here in Palenville my entire life, and I ended up traveling about, but I never really left Greene County. I always stayed in Catskill. I joined the first I joined the Marine Corps after high school, and I did 6 years in the Marines, took a break in service. After 9/11, I re-enlisted in the National Guard. I did another 5 years. And the Army put me through college, and I ended up getting 2 degrees in criminal justice and business management. But I'm still a carpenter, it didn't do anything for me. I was appointed as a town historian in September, and it's in my blood to do this. My mother's family's been here, Anita Better. Her family's been here for 300 years, roughly, in the town of Catskill. About 1730 they settled here. My father's side, the Edwards side, they've been in Catskill about the same amount of time, but they settled to Palenville around 1830, somewhere around there. So I have a long bloodline of Palenville. And there's not very many of us left that are original to be here. So anyway, who here knows why? Show of hands, why is Palenville here? What?
Palins.
The tanneries, right?
Tanneries.
All right. Well, that's the correct answer, the tanneries. Now, show of hands, who can tell me who or what a tannery is? Does everybody know exactly what a tannery is?
Tan
Show of
huts.
hands. Okay, well, we're going to go over that whole process today. I tried to figure it out as best I could, but we'll get to it. So anyway, I'd like to thank Mr. Crane Davis for inviting me tonight, and I'd like to congratulate Doreen Davis for her new position as town supervisor. So here we go. So here's the title: Palenville Leather, Luxury, Locomotives, Legendary. Oh, first of all, everybody, there's a timeline I passed out. You're going to have to share it because I only made 30 copies. I didn't expect 100 people to show up.
What you got?
Everybody, you can look it over and pass it around, wherever. But here's Palenville. Now, who thinks we're in Palenville? If we're in the 1800s, early 1800s, who thinks we're in Palenville right now? No. It's not Palenville. Palenville is at the foot of the mountain. This would be the foot of the mountain. That's who lives up there? The Carters are. So that's up there is where their house is. This would be the foot of the mountain where Palenville all started. This is the little village. That's the little hamlet. The line is about where the triangle is, and that would be, the rest of it is Yankeetown. I don't know where they came up with that name from. I tried to research it, but I'm having a really hard time. I can't get any answers on it, but hopefully I'll stumble upon it soon. So leather. The leather industry is what brought Palenville here, but it wasn't just Palenville. It was also up the mountain. You had Colonel William Edwards for Hunter in Tannerville. He opened a tannery, and Colonel Zadig Pratt, is that his name? Zadig Pratt. He also had a tannery in Prattsville. I think he had the largest in the United States at the time. I'm pretty sure. Yes. So it wasn't just the Palins coming here to make tanneries. It was everybody came here. And if you look on your timeline, so I figured out the date. The closest I could figure out for Palenville being is 1817. Now that's when the War of 1812 just ended, and because of the War of 1812, it was about trade and taxes with Britain, and we wanted to have free trade. That's a whole other story, the War of 1812. I really don't understand it. It's hard to get into, but it was against Britain over trading overseas. So the United States decided that it would be better off that we just not rely on European countries anymore for our goods. So we started industry here. And that would be the tanning industry, which would happen here. Mr. Ron Dombrowski did a demonstration at the Vetter Research Library. He did an excellent review on that. He got into it, but I was going to try to focus more on what tanning was today. Now, I was told I was given to do a half-an-hour presentation, but I think I can go on for days talking about this. So If we have to do a part 2 or part 3, maybe we can do that. We'll see how it goes. So anyway, the tanning industry. So 3 Palens came here, and I don't know why. But my guess is, in Kiskatom, there was a Kiskatom patent. In the early 1700s, Kiskatom was formed, and that's where mostly the villages. There's no history of Palenville before the Revolution. So there was too many Indians here, I don't know. It was like, this was the frontier. There was too many forests, too wooded area. There's only one little trail to make up the mountain, and that was it. So the Palens ended up being related to the Brits, the Brit family. Now that used to be called Brits Corners before it was Stories Corners. I don't know how many of you, show of hands, anybody heard that before? 1, 2. So before Stories Corners, it was famous for being Brits Corners, B-R-I-T-T-S. And most of that family, the Brit family, owned most of the land around Kiskatom and the surrounding areas. And it just so happens that the Palens were related to the Brits somehow. I didn't do a genealogy on the Palen family, but I'm sure that's how they got word that there was hemlocks growing here. Now the reason, let's see here. The reason for coming here was these hemlock trees. They're the Christmas-looking trees, the little flat needles, and the little pine cones. And I'll pass around so everybody sees. So these are the hemlocks, and they're very rare in Palenville nowadays, if you want to pass this around.
It was the whole thing with the tanneries, they destroyed them.
Yeah, but they come back.
Yeah. Especially on the mountain, in the grove a little bit.
So these are hemlocks.
This place has got a history.
Anybody want them?
Disease. I've certainly seen hemlocks before.
So that's the hemlock branch. There are very few. I only count about 20 of them in town that I can see. But
Next to my house.
with the cedar tree, because they're very similar. But the bark is very distinguished. The rough bark. This is cedar. No, this is all hemlock. So what the tanners were after was the bark. Well, first they're after this. Here's some limbs we can pass around. Here's some limbs.
You have none?
Oh, well, calm down.
That's an elevation. You can see those ridges.
So what they were after was the bark. The bark of the tree is the only use you can get. Why would you want the bark of the tree?
Where the tannin is.
Well, yes. What is so important about bark? What does the bark do for the tree?
Protects it.
Keeps it alive.
Breeds. The tree breeds through the bark.
The bark is the protective layer of a tree, which keeps the insects away. It's a water repellent. So the acid from this bark, as you can see, that's the red color they want. They're looking. These mountains were covered, and this grows in a shady area on the edge of the mountains. They're looking for that bark. These are the pine cones you would find. These only grow after the tree's about 50 years old. They'll start seeding. You want to pass that up around? So the tree will only seed after every 40 or 50 years or so.
That's because you had to turn it around.
There's the bark there. Anybody have any questions so far?
Yeah, how did they use it?
I'll show you. We'll get to that. Oh, yeah. All right, so what they did, this is a drawing that was taken from the museum, at the Catskill Museum.
thank God.
So they opened up their tanneries, they had these big buildings, but that's where they preserved the leather. But they went up in the forest and they hired subcontractors or contractors to go out and cut down the trees, and all they wanted was the bark. I'm sure everything else got used as lumber or firewood or whatever, but they only wanted that bark, so they stripped it down. So that's a scene of what they would do. So anyway, what everybody wants to know is, what can you get out of this bark? Alright, so I went out and stripped that bark and I boiled it. And we came up with this solution here. This is the tannic acid. So if you want to pass these around, you can smell it.
Yeah.
Tannic acid, like you need for
These are for sale for $20 a piece. Flip the top open. It's not poison. It's not poisonous. There's a.
So you just boil the bark and that's what you got?
You want to smell the tops? Okay, so you boil the bark. Well, you don't have to boil it, because I don't think they went through that trouble of, it's a large, this much bark is what, those 6 containers, I had to use this much bark for those 6 containers to get that amount. So what you do is, if this was a container they were trying to boil, or just warm water, I think you can speed the process up by boiling, but I think you could just let it sit there. I'm not exactly sure what they did. I couldn't find any exact information, but to speed up the process, you would just add half bark and fill it to the top with water, boil it for an hour or 2, and you get that solution. Now you got to be careful not to do too much of this. If the solution is too potent, it could damage the leather and crack it. So after, let's see here, so I did the experiment. Oh, if you want, here, you can, this is bark that has been boiled, and they call it mulch. So that's where, yes, this is the boiled part.
So is that like the same kind of mulch that you have today? Boiling?
Probably. So that word mulch that we all know of, go around your garden, is probably where that came from. So if they're boiling the bark and getting that solution, first they would, the tanner, the rawhide would come in from other people slaughtering their cattle or whatever, or their wild animals. They bring in the rawhide, and then it would go through, they would salt it and preserve it. And I think they would try to scrape off as much fur and fat as they could, then they would soak it in lime, which I don't even know where you get that from. Does anybody know where? So lime, it would soak in lime to get rid of all the excess fat and gross stuff, and that's where people think, I think they complained about the rotten smell, and I don't think the smell they're complaining about is coming from this fluid, and that's what I thought they were mentioning before when I heard about this, because that doesn't smell bad.
No.
No. So I think the pollutant thing that everybody complained about back in the late 1800s was the smell of the rotten decay of nasty animal flesh and everything getting washed down the creek. But I don't think it was from this acid. So what were you saying, Mr. Davis, about?
Prior to using the bark for the tannin, they use urine and feces as to get the acids for tanning leather.
This is an upgrade then, is what you're saying.
But you also mentioned Socrates.
Oh yeah, Socrates.
So I emailed Mr. Davis about the acid. I told him you could taste it, you can drink this. The Indians use the leaves of those little, what are they called?
Spills.
The needles, you boil it and it's high in vitamin C, so it's not poisonous. There's a hemlock plant that is poisonous, so don't go drinking the hemlock plant. But the hemlock tree is no poisonous than a piece of 2x4 or any pine tree, so it's perfectly safe. And I tasted it and drank it. It tastes like bitter coffee or tea. It's fine. So it's not poisonous. So anyway, after boiling the bark, then I put. Now this here was just, I couldn't find any rawhide. It was too hard for me to find. I searched all Catskill, all Kingston, Saugerties. Like the only thing I come up with was my mother had this idea was to get a chamois cloth.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a sheepskin. But the only thing is, it's already has been tanned with fish oil. So what I tried to do is remove the fish oil somehow. So I soaked it, I washed it like 10 times. And I Use vinegar to, is that what I use, vinegar? Use vinegar to get rid of it. But this is my first sample, and I boiled this, like I said, I don't think they boiled it because it would have been too much work to boil tons and tons of rawhide. But that's
Is it deer
Now
skin
you
that
can
they're
see-
boiling, that you,
cattle, deer, I don't know.
anything?
Mostly
I read that they
deer,
got a lot of
cows.
hides from South America.
South America.
They shipped them up north.
Oh, really?
I mean, they use this area primarily for the hemlock bark and not as much for the hide that I originally thought. But they shipped a lot of them up from South America.
So apparently everything was, the hides were coming from everywhere. And because we had these hemlocks, because that's, you want this color, that's the color they're looking for, that dark red color. But like I said, this was only sitting in here, I boiled it for like 10 minutes and that was it. But if you want
Wow.
to pass that around, that was my first sample. And that's the original color, that light, that's what it started from. And then I have another sample here, that this was boiled even longer, and this is where you're going to get, and now the Palens were, their main industry was this is hard to say, shoe sole leather. So here's this is a tougher one. This came out even tougher.
So is that what tanning is, just like making it red?
Well, it's not only the hemlock tree that you could tan. You could tan with any tree bark, because you want that acid from any bark as a protective layer from a tree. So an oak tree, some trees will give you a grayish color, like a regular pine tree or cedar will give you that yellowish color. But the hemlock, because of that bark, everybody saw the bark. If you flip it over, you see that pink. You see the pink on the bark? That's the color that comes out.
It breaks down the proteins in the leather and makes it more durable, makes it harder than rawhide. So I Googled it yesterday.
But I was reading and they let it, and like I said, it was too hard. It must have been way too hard for them to boil water like that and to have all these hides come in. So what I read is they would just let it sit there for 6 months in that solution, in big bins. Here, you can pass that around. So this is a piece that I only had this sitting in a solution for 2 days maybe. Now, obviously it's not as dark. That boiling it speeds up the process a lot. But that's that bright reddish brown color that they're looking for. Anybody have any questions so far? Any questions?
If they were shipping the hides here instead of shipping the bark there, they must have used a tremendous amount of bark.
Yes.
It's cheaper to ship the hides here than to ship the bark away.
Well, bark is, well, the trees were here.
The water.
And we had the water, so that's
Yeah,
the
we
other
had the
big thing.
water.
The creeks, because you need the creeks to, like I said, wash away before the tanning process began, before it was stuck into that barrel of acid, the tanning acid, you had to use the creeks to wash it away, wash all the skin away, wash all the fat away, wash all the hair away, and then it would go and sit in the solution for 6 months to get that good color. And then, like I said, they would taste it to make sure it was the right potency. I don't know if you need to wear this hat anymore. We're already into the 1800s. In the 1800s, they had like a bowl, they call it a bowling hat. Which I need to get one of those next. Any more questions on tanning? No? Anybody?
Well, I got, my understanding was that most of the leather for the Union Army during the Civil War was tanned in this area. Is that true?
I don't believe that's true. Now, if you go to your, now this is why, because if you look at your timeline, our business started here about 1817 is what I figured. So the Civil War was like 1860s. So, and by 1830, on the timeline, there's no more trees left here. They were gone. And the Palens got up and left around 1830. Whatever kids they had from the original family was here. And the Palens had only one side of the family was here. The Palens have been in the tanning business all over New York State for their entire lives. So like 4 generations before these Palens came here. So it's nothing new to them. But we used up all the trees here in 1830 and deforestation started setting in. And this place was stripped. If you look at those old pictures that you can see from the Civil War time, there's no trees here. There's nothing. like a, yes, sir.
What I've read is that the Palins from here partnered with Jay Gould and Pratt, and went down. First, they went to Sampsonville, you know, Palin Town and all that. But then they went down and did the Poconos, you know,
Yes, they went to
Canadensis, which is
Pennsylvania is where they,
Yeah.
from here they went to Pennsylvania. They moved on and went to
Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
It messed up their.
So after all that land was left, now the Palins left. There's no more trees here, but the tanneries were still here. And that's where my family comes in. I just stumbled upon this a couple months ago. I was looking through a deed and I found out in 1830 something, my ancestor Peter Edwards ended up purchasing the land with a tannery on it. And I don't know what he intended on doing. Why would he give up everything in Albany County by Oak Hill to come here? So it had to have been a reason. Either there was, the Palins got up and left and these businesses were still able to do small like work. Yes, ma'am.
Is your family related to Edwardsville, which Hunter was?
No, we are not. And that's, like I said, Colonel William Edwards, who established Hunter and Tannersville, he had one of the biggest tanneries as well, which is way bigger than the Palins, or just as big as the Pratts almost, but he went bankrupt, but we're not related, no. Two different sides. Now, where was I? Anybody want to help me out here?
I'm sorry.
Peter Edwards. Now, why would he come? Yes, sir.
Exactly where was the Palin Tannery? Was it above the Intamin Bridge?
Does anybody have that? It was.
The tannery.
Palin Tannery.
Mill Street is the skeleton of the frame of one of the tanneries that happened. It's right by the waterfalls. If you look, you'll see a square where the mill used to sit.
So Malden Avenue and 23.
Right, well, actually, it's back in here. It's right back.
Well, there was a couple here. There was one at the foot.
Mill Street, it was the big one.
Okay, so there was a big one on Mill Lane. What is it called? Mill Lane?
Mill Lane.
Mill Road? What is it?
Mill Road.
Mill Road. There was one on Mill Road near the tannery.
And then there was one further up.
There's one at the
just by
wall,
bridge.
at the bridge, right at the foot of the mountain.
So there's roughly 3 here in town, I imagine. So one at the foot of the mountain, one on Mill Road, and one by the Tannery Bridge. So everybody had their hands in it, and it wasn't just the Palins. I don't think they even had anything to do with anything. I think they just set up shop and subcontracted everything out, and all these. That's why the boarding houses which are here now. There's luxury. Now this is where the boarding houses come in.
That's where I come in.
Hotels and boarding houses. Oh, here's that map that we passed out of the boarding houses. Now, because we had all these tanning business operation going on here, all the workers need to have a place to stay. They must have been just men without women and children, I guess, that they must have just heard about all this opportunity and they come here. I don't know if they lived here year-round, maybe they just came for seasonal work. But like I said, in the winter, the creeks are gonna freeze, that solution's gonna freeze, so unless they're boiling this thing constantly all winter long, it's gonna freeze overnight. There's no way to keep this water from freezing, so I imagine it was just seasonal. This was thrown into my slideshow. Mr. Davis made this map up for us. So at the foot of the mountain, we have the Palenville Hotel, and that would be one of the first boarding houses I think was to be put up. So all those workers from the tanneries had these boarding houses, went and stayed at these boarding houses. Now, like I said, after 1830, around that time, that's when the tanning came to an end here. I don't know how much to an end, but the Palins were gone. They were out of here. There was no more trees. They wanted money. That's all they cared about was making big business, big money. Now, a few stayed. A few of their kids would stay, I guess, and still run the town. But they're gone. So now you have all these workers. So they would stay at these boarding houses, and which would eventually turn into hotels. Now, the big famous hotel that we all know of is what?
Catskill.
Mountain House. Let's see. Well, first we have the Drummond's Falls House. I just wanted to point this house out because it was supposed to be built in 1803. Now, if you notice in Palenville, in Catskill, there's probably 20 houses that were built in the early 1700s, late 1600s, built of stone, and there's nothing like that here, right? Am I wrong? Has anybody ever seen in Palenville a stone house built before? No. At Kiskaton, there's a few. But now Palenville, like I said, this is the frontier, and nobody would come out here. So the Drummond's Falls house would have been built in 1803. So being in Palenville now, today, that would probably be the oldest house built in Palenville. It's right on the edge of Ulster County. So here's a list of some of the boarding houses and how many people they would hold. Oh, I got this laser pointer thing here. So you can see all the board, how many people they would hold. There's the Drummond's Falls house again. And that.
Sorry, I just did that.
Here's the Palenville Hotel. That's at the foot of the mountain. Here we have the Winchelsea, which is across the street from the golf course.
Had a great bar.
It's not there now.
Great bar.
No, that's not there.
It's where the parking
Band
lot,
on the weekends.
they just dug out the new parking lot. That's where the
Here's
Winchelsea
some
was.
Here's some old advertisements, and here's another one that was just given today. This was a copy of an original, right?
So these are advertising for a resort, not for, workers' places.
Right, well, now, good thing you rewind me. Okay, so, the tanning industry was done. Now, we had all these people here, and they needed a place, they need something to do. So, thank God Washington Irving wrote the book Rip Van Winkle. And now that's what I want to talk about, is Rip Van Winkle. Who thinks he's a real person? He's not. He's a fictional character, but the story was based at the foot of the Catskill Mountains, and somehow Palenville claimed it to be the home of Rip Van Winkle.
What becomes interesting is Irving had never visited.
So where are we here in the timeline? So what, in 1819, so it was just right after we established Palenville. So it's only 2 years after Washington Irving wrote the book Rip Van Winkle. And a few years later, we built the turnpike going up the mountain, not a road. I think there was a road built with felons.
That was built later on.
That was built, yes, that was built a lot later on. That's not the road I'm talking about. This is just a trail. We got the mountain. So luckily, Washington Irving wrote this book. So everybody wanted to see what this place is all about.
Oh, boy.
Is this 7 o'clock?
Nope, it's a fire. Oh, nope, it's 7 o'clock, you're right.
So because of Washington Irving making this, now everybody thinks that Palenville was established because of the artist colony, and that's not true. I mean, a lot of artists want to believe that, but that's not why we're here. It's not at all. I believe it was because of Washington Irving. Now we had to do something with all these hotels and boarding houses and give people places to stay. Well, we shouldn't be there yet. But for some reason, some gentleman built this house, and I don't know why. He just hiked up the mountain one day with a bunch of his buddies and decided this would be a great place to put a hotel. And why he did that, I have no idea. I don't know.
Because he wanted to go into business. That's Beecher to put up that house.
Right, but does anybody know why? Because I haven't.
Yeah, because there were too many people coming from when coal came in 1825 and it became more popular. There was just a little hut built there. So Charles Beach came along and saw the opportunity. So he had the mountain house built because he had a monopoly on everything going up there. So that was
built the mountain house himself, though.
well, he had
Catskill House,
behind
mountain
him.
house. Merchants from.
Yes, sir.
He had a stagecoach business, and he figured if he built the hotel, then there'd be tons of people to take his stagecoach up to the mountain. Otherwise, they wouldn't bother to go up there.
It was the view, because Washington Irving said it's all creation, and that's really what brought it around.
Okay, so this gentleman that owned this place had a stagecoach business, and I guess he had a good idea that might as well monopolize it and make everybody stay at his one hotel. And that's where,
Well, the hotel was much too expensive for most people,
right.
okay? And who went there were people that wanted to get out of the cities. And one of the big reasons, one of the big selling points was because of malaria in the cities. And once you got to an elevation of over 1,000 or so feet, the mosquito to carry that didn't come. So they could advertise that they had malaria-free summer resort, and everybody went there. And that's why Twilight Park, which was probably established before that, that's where all of the big people were going up that way.
1880s.
Down the mountain, don't know.
That's, you're saying 1880s, but we're in 1820,
That's fine.
1825, so we're talking, so this is really early why this mountain house was built, which doesn't make sense, it still doesn't make sense to me. Like you said,
It was an opportunity.
It was an opportunity, and the wealthy
been there?
elite from all over the country went there. You know,
but I still don't know how popular it was though.
well,
back
the
then.
elite
It was
sometimes
the
like to have
elite,
some
yeah.
place where they can get away from the whole boy, and
You didn't go for the
this happened to be
weekend.
the place.
No, they went for
It was nowhere near that size, you realize, for the first several years, first 4, 5, 6 years or so. It was almost
It
a
was
shack.
small, and then it was
And then, once it kind of took off, the idea of it, then the building, not so much in that configuration, was built, and then remodeled for that later.
There were a couple of things that happened about this time. One was Rip Van Winkle being published in Europe and people wanting to come see the frontier. There was James Fenimore Cooper publishing the Leatherstocking Saga in this period.
Last of the Mohicans.
And people wanted to come up and see that frontier. And then you had the artists who were painting these landscapes of this area, which were showing in European art shows. And people came across, and a lot of the traffic for the Mountain House was European. They would come into New York, hop a ferry, come up, get out at Kingston, come across, take the stage up the mountain to the Mountain House. And there was a 4-star restaurant at the Mountain House. So the food was first rate.
And bands.
And bands.
Well, now that he brings up the food, and that's why the gentleman got in an argument over not having fried chicken, is what I've read. So he got mad at the guy, and he said, I'm going to build a bigger and grander hotel, and he did. And that's Hotel Catskill. Now that was facing down this. Excuse me, sir?
It was the largest mountain.
Oh, it was the largest mountain house at the
Mr.
time.
Harding, he was an English, Philadelphia lawyer. Harding rose behind my house. And George Trumper, who lived across the street from me, was one of the master stone cutters. And he told me the whole story going back 60 years ago, before he died. And he said they used to haul the lumber to build the Catskill up with horses behind my house, up through the trail to go up towards North Lake. And he got in a fight with Mr. Beach because all he served was chicken. And he got fed up with chicken. He said, don't you serve anything else but chicken? And so he built the Catskill, and then it burnt down in a grease fire that burned for a long time. And but there's still a little foundation if you go up there. You can see it.
And that looked down on this side.
Yeah.
So then we have in our timeline, so by 1825 there was 3 tanneries in operation here in Palenville.
Yep. We're going backwards, so let me move it.
Backwards?
I'll take it forwards.
All right.
Tell me where you want to stop here.
Okay, right there, just stop there. Okay, so by 1825 we have 3 tanneries going on. So then 1826 is when the first post office was built. Now, there was questions about where there was a famous picture. Where is that picture?
It's later on, you've got it in the...
Well, we'll see the picture later on, but there's the post office, nobody can answer where that was. Does anybody know where the original first Palenville post office was?
It was in a motel, it was on the hotel. It was on a small hotel, small post office. You're somewhere in general area in this area. Down here.
Well, on a map that I've seen in from in the 1860s, which this one was, the first one was in 1826. So in the 1850s, there's a map that shows right here in the triangle is where the post office was, in a general store. I don't remember the gentleman's name off the top of my head, but
Well, one of the original post offices was on the corner. Right on the corner by the red light here.
Yep.
Who started one there? That's one of the original post offices.
Well, I don't know, I think maybe Doc Holcomb's house on the other four corners.
but the post office at that time, Palenville was, like I said, this line was right at this triangle here, and this was Yankeetown, and the rest was Palenville. But and that was because of the school districts. They would separate the school districts from District 12 and 17. So Yankeetown School District was by Maple Grove, was behind Fred's Tavern, was another schoolhouse, and the other schoolhouse was next to the Episcopal Church. So that's why the names were separated for school districts. And now what we call Palenville is because of the fire district. That's why Palenville is what it is. Okay, so with all these boarding houses and hotels and everybody traveling to it, finally we got trains coming in here, the locomotives. Now here's a picture of the Palenville train station. And who can tell me where that was?
Golf course.
It's on the golf course, correct. And here's another picture on the golf course of the train station. You can see it's 2 stories tall there. It may have been some more boarding houses upstairs, or somebody lived up there. Whoever ran the place. I guess I heard there was a turntable somewhere over here, I guess. And there it is later on. Maybe it burnt down or something and they built a new one, or they took
That one's right behind our house, actually, and the framework is still there. You can still see the foundations.
This station?
That station, yes. It's in the woods right now, but...
Oh, really? I did.
Yeah. If you follow the railroad right-of-way, which is still pretty easy to follow, behind the golf course.
So that's new. That's
it's off of there, and that's the one that the footprint is still there.
So they changed the track?
Yes, because of the Otis.
So you can see here on the map. Now, we didn't go directly from Catskill to Palenville. We went from Catskill all the way to Carroll, through Lawrenceville, which is near the Irish Center, I think, in Kiskatown. No, not the Irish Center. B&B Lounge it's called now?
Yeah.
The Lawrence house.
So Lawrenceville. So the train would come from Catskill, go into Carroll Junction. There's a train station there, then to Lawrenceville train station, then to Palenville. And I think this is the spot where the golf course is probably, maybe, or wherever you're speaking about.
No, I was speaking about it right there at the base of the Otis, actually. There was a transfer station.
Right here.
Yeah, right in there.
But
From
that's,
Palenville, they go along Pennsylvania Avenue in between Pennsylvania and Bogart Road, and it would drop people off here and they travel up the Otis. So the Otis was not a train, it was actually it was a cable car, and the cable pulled you to the top. Now that was to go to the mountain house here.
Actually, the railroad split into 2. There was the northern branch, which went to the mountain house, and then there was the southern branch, which went to Palenville. And if you go into the woods back here, you'll see where the 2 tracks came together. One was going to the north, one was going south. Before the winter, they used the south one as soon as the mountain house closed. I researched a lot.
So where was this?
This was down here. Actually, I lived off of Pennsylvania Ave, and about 100 feet in is where the brook ran. And if you went another maybe 100 feet, you saw the one railroad trail. That's overrun. But there's one another maybe 200 feet up. They ran, basically one ran along the top, one ran at an angle. And they come together just before the man-made falls. There's a carving of the falls where the railroad bridge used to be. And they came together there and went into the golf course. And where the Otis Railroad was, they still have the footage that went across the property.
I've seen pictures where there's a bridge, the Otis goes up and there's a road with a bridge cutting across it.
Yeah, that's Bogart Road.
That's Bogart Road.
And actually, I did research when I first moved up here 20-some years ago. And on the coldest day of the year, I went up to the thing, because my cousin did surveying up there at one time, and he said there's pieces of wreckage of a car, one of the oldest cars. And I went up there and did research on it, and it's a baggage car, whatever left. I have 1 or 2 pieces of it, of the actual income, but it's a baggage car.
So the actual station at the bottom of the mountain was in between Pennsylvania Avenue and Bogart Road?
Yeah.
It's not that far.
So here it is. So this is the picture I'm talking about. So
But it
this,
still survives.
so this bridge here, that's Bogart Road?
That's Bogart Road.
So this would be below, okay. See, I never ventured this as a kid. I never really.
That's after they shortened it. They shortened it by 600 or 800 feet. That's the second. And the line he's talking about, there were 2 lines. They moved the track closer to the mountain, but they shortened the line.
So is this a train track, this bridge, or is that just a road?
That's the road. Roadway.
Okay.
So is that Black Falls?
Excuse me?
They say, no, Black Falls is in further. Yeah, it's not near, it's really back behind the golf course, Black Falls. It's deteriorating, Black Falls, it's falling apart, but it's still there, it's still there.
So they get off their train and they get on here and that would take them to the top. Okay, what date are we at now? So if you see on your timeline, about 1835, there's another, one of the great historical things I found was a big fire in New York City, so maybe that's another reason why people wanted to come here. They had no place else to live or something, I don't know, that could have drawn people here. And then we had the Civil War starting, and I don't think anything was going on here. Does anybody know of anything that was going on here in the Civil War? Because I couldn't.
I did a little research on Yankeetown. I don't know if it was the Civil War or in between there, where stories out their property. That used to be a practice field for the military.
That's what I've heard too. Yeah, where we had a pee-wee field. Tom Story says he has pictures of this, of a drill camp during the Civil War era, and he hasn't shown me yet. Has anybody seen anything like that before?
Have you seen it?
You've seen the picture?
My father has it.
I know he does. He told me he has it. Can you get that?
I could probably get it.
And he said there was a picture of the Union Episcopal, the Union Methodist Episcopal Church was also in Yankeetown by Maple Grove. He says he has a picture. Have you
There
seen
was a schoolhouse and then across the street from the schoolhouse was a church.
Have you seen the picture of that church?
I don't know that one.
I think I may have a picture of the doorway, but that's about it. So does everybody, that's news. I just figured this out a couple months ago that there was a church. That was the first church, and that was there in 1830s. Somewhere in 1830, there was sometime between 1830 and before this stone one was built here and this white one here, for some reason, they built this one Union church. It was from Methodist and Episcopal. It was part of this Kiskatom circuit. So the church records for that church, a lot of Palenville locals went to this church. But it was part of a Kiskatom circuit. It's in that church records. It's hard to find, but it's hidden within the Kiskatom circuit. It's also part of Round Top, Caro, Kiskatom, and this Palenville one is stuck in there. You'll see a lot of records there. So if anybody's doing any genealogy on their family and trying to find, most likely it's in this Palenville Methodist circuit, or Kiskatom Methodist circuit. So here's Rip Van Winkle. We already talked about him a little bit. And that's Washington Irving. He's the one that created Rip Van Winkle, and that's probably why. Now we changed the name, the postmaster changed the name from Palenville to Irvingsville. Now, it's on your timeline there. What year was that?
1833.
Okay, so 1833, that's about the time, now this is what's important, that's about the time when the trees were gone and no more leather industry was here. So we had to do something with this hotel, we had to bring more people here. So I think it was a publicity stunt to change the name to Irvingsville to pay tribute to him. And that stayed for 7 years before it was changed back. Now, I don't know why they changed it back, I have no idea. Does anybody know that information?
Palenville's better name than
It was, they renamed it after the founders. The Palens are still buried in the Palenville.
Does anybody know why they
It is intermediary as Palens with an S-ville. There was an intermediary period of time when It was called Palin with an S-ville, Palenville.
Yeah, I've seen that. I thought it was a mistake. I actually did see that written
No,
with an
there's
S.
a tremendous painting that the Albany Institute has now.
Historian back in the 70s, 70s, 80s. She passed away, and I have a lot of her old research. She wrote quite a big thesis about what you're talking about, why it went Palenville, Irvingsville, back to Palenville, and I have all that research of hers.
Okay.
I forget exactly why, but I have all that.
So we'll figure that out later. I had so much to try to throw together for this. I tried to focus on just showing you guys the tanning. So anyway, what's this guy's name again? I forget.
Washington Palin.
Washington Palin? Washington Irving. So anyway, the name of Palin was changed to Irvingsville for a short time and changed back. There we go, Irvingsville. So this would have been Irvingsville up here and Yankeetown down there, and nobody knows why it was named Yankee. Nobody? I've been searching for this. Do you know why?
Why?
Yankeetown. Why do they call it Yankeetown? Anybody know? I have no idea either.
The obvious would be a bunch of Yankees moved
So here's the post office. So this is the one I was talking about that I've been asking around and nobody could really tell me, but according to that map that I have, pretty much when photography came out, the post office would be where a bunch of ski rental was. Roughly around there. Anybody want to argue that? Because I'm still not 100% sure. Excuse me?
Sidewalk.
Yeah, sidewalk.
Isn't that building right here? Right up by the light.
Mm-hmm.
That's the back of that building that's there now. They moved it back and put a building in front of it. Move that building back, jacked it up, and put another building in front of it. Who's that building up here?
This building is still there?
Yes.
Oops. Oh, can you Google? Yep. Yeah, that's Jake's. So hold on a second. Now, you say this building is still there?
Yes, there's a picture, I've seen pictures of, they really moved it, they jacked it up, moved it back, and put that two-story building in front of it. Attached.
So this building, they moved over here now.
Yes.
If you look at the building, you'll see an A-frame on the back of the building. Most likely that blocks something.
Yeah.
So for perspective, the Dollar General would be just behind that building on the right, correct?
Yep.
I know it would.
That's right where the lights are. And those the lights, this is as though you're coming down from the Clove. The lights are right here. You're looking at the triangle on the left, and on the right, just beyond this building would be Dollar General.
So is this road 23A right here?
Yes. 32A. Oh, 32A, I'm sorry, yes.
Yes, okay, so Dollar General.
According to that.
And this is 23A?
Yes.
Why is there a house?
That's the triangle.
We talked about Irvingsville. Washington Irving.
Oh,
You going backwards again?
Yankeetown.
We talked a little bit about Yankeetown, and that's the swinging bridge. This is the last photo I was able to take of it. And that's my son Jakers. And that's all I got.